All right, I am leaving the office. It says it's going to be an hour drive home. That's nice. We like that. Just kidding. That's absolutely awful. But, I mean, hey, that's what happens. We got to get in the fast lane and we'll be okay. We'll survive. So, I recorded my video leaving CrossFit, and then I did another vlog leaving home and driving into the office. I'm not going to post that one, though. I actually did the whole drive and was like literally 20 seconds away from pulling into the office here, and there's people crossing. And basically, I turned it off. I just said, like, I don't feel good posting that. And the reason why is that I had a pretty foul person online that was being quite condescending and attacking me, and I decided that I would rant about it. And as much, a lot of people don't know this, I love to rant. Like, I get pretty nasty if I if I get on a good rant. It's funny actually. Some of my closest friends, like growing up from high school and stuff, I think it's kind of funny that they used to know me for, like, they used to get me going and try to rant on different subjects and kind of poke the bear, if you will, to get me riled up on things, because I think the reason why is because I am a pretty logical thinker, so I'm not just making up bull crap, but I would rant about things. And so they were like, well, you got a point, but I think it's mostly because I find ways to be insulting to people, and they thought it was funny. So I realized I was kind of doing that, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to post this. Like, it's not going to be okay, so I'll delete it off my camera, which means there was no extra video from this morning. I'm sorry, but I was just talking to Ryan Murphy again. I was talking with him the other day because I had posted something on LinkedIn about people being crappy, and he was like, hey, like, you know, and I appreciate this kind of thing, you know, just it's like got your back kind of deal. And I was saying, I'm not really bothered by this stuff, but I think if I clarify my statement, I'm not bothered in the sense where I get like imposter syndrome from people being jerks, right? That's not what bothers me, because I know who I am. I know what I've accomplished. I'm not concerned in that regard. But I do have a problem with people, especially in public, trying to belittle me and being a jerk. Now, the problem is that as much as I would love to be like, I'll tell you what's up, I also can't do that. I won't do that on social media to the extent that I probably would absolutely love. And I was recording the video earlier, and I was like, hey, like, whatever, it's my vlog. And I'm like, you know what, I still, like, I don't feel good about that. And it was probably helpful for me to just have the drive and rant and get it off my chest. And that's already too much energy spent on that. So anyway, that's why no more vlog from this morning. But, oh man, don't drive. That's a red light. What are you doing? Don't do it. You did also get to miss, literally, I was real pissed off, and as I was driving, there were tons of excellent drivers this morning. Not even for me. There were people that were putting on their signal and just, like, driving into other vehicles. It was awesome. Like, I almost got hit and then watched someone else almost get hit by a different car. This person in front of me was halfway through the lights just now. Like, it's a good day for dummies. Anyway, so this morning I was mentioning that I had to do I say had to, that sounds like it's not a good thing. But I had a scheduled podcast interview, which I thought was awesome. it's really cool having guests on and being able to chat with people and kind of hear their background and different perspectives. So I was talking with Dagna. I don't believe I can pronounce her last name yet, which I have to make sure I can do when I record the intro. But she was on promoting her book, and super cool. I haven't read it yet, but like the concept is super cool. It's she calls it like I might have the title wrong, so I apologize, but like it's kind of like refactoring how your brain works, and the entire idea is about trying to help software developers kind of navigate some common problems that we face, like things like imposter syndrome, burnout, things like that. But it's all framed in a way that's like literally developer speak, is how she was kind of demonstrating it. So she reads out a couple of sounds good. Couple of passages from the book, which I thought was pretty cool. But like literally things framed like when you're thinking about your, and she kind of said it towards the end of the podcast, and I might have the wording wrong, but I thought this was helpful to think about it, because when I'm generalizing, I think a lot of us as software engineers, and probably people outside of software engineering, when we're trying to think about like reflecting on our mental state, how we can make changes for how we think about things, like our brain is kind of like ourselves, right? Like that's my consciousness, like that's some people for your soul, whatever, like that's me. My brain is me. And when she was talking about this, she was kind of framing it like some people have a challenge with that, because when it comes time to make changes or try things out or to reflect on things, it can be challenging to look at it that way. But if you can start to like dissociate or distance like your brain from just your consciousness, and you can kind of look at it like it's a weird kind of thing to say, but like you're looking at it from the outside, right? Like if you can be more objective and say, okay, like these are the things that are happening in my brain, like this is my thought process, but it's not you. You're kind of looking at it like this external thing and doing this reflection on it and thinking through it. I thought that was a cool way to, oh man, these people, I can't watch. Two people trying to merge into the same spot on the highway, not going to work. But I thought it was a cool example, because I can think about situations where like, I'm kind of struggling to do some personal reflection, but if you were to put a system in front of me and you said, Nick, like go troubleshoot this thing, and I can think about it just like some system, some product, and she was kind of talking about it like, you're doing product revisions, right? So, oh, that was my bad. I cut someone off. Oops. That person's not going to be happy. Oh well. Sorry, now this person's going to be probably tailgating me the whole way home. But she was talking about doing like product revisions, and I thought it was super interesting because it's kind of like looking at it from the outside in, and then you can be a little bit more objective about it. But all of the language that she was kind of framing up in her book was using like developer terminology so that it's more relevant. And that way, trying to take out like direct emotional feelings and things that usually like people want to neglect or kind of reject, I guess. So for stereotypical software engineers, right, it's like talking about feelings is like kind of uncomfortable, but okay, like if we can find other ways to talk about these things, it's the same ideas, right? Same ideas, but if we can find other ways to navigate these things together, then you can be a little bit more proactive. So, man, I'm embarrassed. I just, after I'm talking about these people cutting other people off and merging, I go ahead and I merge into someone, but he drives a Bronco, so that's his fault. So, super cool conversation. I'm trying to think about some other parts in that I thought were good takeaways. We talked about burnout, and she had a couple of she read through a couple of things for identifying burnout, which I liked a lot. Different symptoms, and one of the key takeaways there was that for burnout, a lot. A lot of people experience burnout, and a lot more people will experience it. But one of the things that's important is that burnout can and is a thing that sneaks up on you, right? I think sometimes people are oh, I'm gonna burn out if I go onto this project and I work on it for a week or something, because I don't like it or it's gonna be hard. But that's not really burnout. It's a little bit more systematic, and so she goes through a bunch of symptoms. But like I said, I think the one key takeaway out of that section was just this idea that because it's something that happens over a period of time, and it can look different for everyone, if you're not having awareness of it and the things to look for, it can feel like it comes out of nowhere, which is, I think, the shocking part, right? It feels oh my goodness, now it's the straw that broke the camel's back, so it's all bad. And we both shared examples with each other, and the one that she was sharing, and it's going to sound personal, but it's in the podcast, and she's happy to share it. So she was explaining a situation where she was having a one-on-one with her manager, and there's a bunch of different life changes and stuff that were going on. Oh man, that person was worse than me. That's not even Elaine, buddy. What are you doing? She's having a one-on-one with her manager, and basically just burst into tears, right? And for her, she's saying it feels embarrassing, it's so silly, but because she's I consider myself a professional, and the thing is, though, all this stuff is going on in our heads. We're human, so when you don't have awareness of all this stuff, and then it all piles up, all of a sudden you have this issue, and it feels all of a sudden, right? And it comes out. In her case, it was an emotional response where she was crying, and that's very unfortunate, right? And she had her manager, it sounds like she had a good leader and everything, and it's not they helped her through it, and they actually recommended they have a therapist that they used and had a lot of success with, and that's how she got introduced to having therapy as well. And she said it was life-changing for her. But the point is that it seemed like it came out of nowhere. But the reality is, all of the things that were leading up to her having that kind of that meltdown moment, that didn't come out of nowhere. The meltdown moment itself seems like it, but the reality is it was not out of nowhere. It was a huge buildup. And so that was her story, kind of leading up to this big burnout moment, and sort of led to career change and stuff, which, in the end, I think great for her, right? Obviously you don't want to go through that kind of stuff, but I think she made changes in her career and what she wants to do, and a lot of awesome learning and self-reflection. So in the end, positive, right? And for me, what I shared with her, and I've talked about this before, but when my experience for burnout almost looks backwards, which is weird. Still got a cough. It looks backwards because I think a lot of people that go through burnout, they talk about it I'm at work, and I'm sick of this project, or I have no motivation, but it's a very work-centric thing, not only caused by work, but also you observe the symptoms and how they have an effect on your work, right? So you're procrastinating with projects, you're not motivated to do your projects, your performance is dropping, all these things, and it's affecting your work. So caused by work and affecting your work. And for me, it was very different because mine was caused by work, but I love to work. So I was working late nights, I was working weekends, I was doing this for years. I was, basically replacing all aspects of my life with work. And the things that she was mentioning, procrastinating or performance degrading or these, all these things that affect work, when I was telling her my story, she, I think, very accurately identified it. She's like, you talked about becoming, developing like social anxiety and like, not wanting to be around your friends. It's not want, but like, that's not really a good way. Like, I'm saying that wrong. It's not like I didn't like my friends, but you kind of like putting things off, right? Like, but it wasn't work that I was putting off. It was these other parts of my life. I was putting off meeting up with friends. I was putting like I wasn't investing into friendships and relationships and things like that. So it's the same thing. It's just that it was a different part of my life that was taking the beating. So I thought that was really interesting that, the same burnout concepts that she was identifying as symptoms and things like that, still very applicable to me, even though mine feels like kind of backwards. It just applied to something else. So that was really good. The other thing that she was talking about with me was imposter syndrome, and I'm really big on imposter syndrome from like socializing the idea and stuff. So that was good. Sorry, I gotta merge into this spot, and this guy's not gonna let me in. He's gonna have to because it's a zipper merge. Sorry, buddy. You better figure it out. There we go. Very nice, very nice. Let me in. Okay. So I like talking about imposter syndrome, not because I like imposter syndrome, but because a ridiculous amount of people go through it, and there's people online that are like, oh, imposter syndrome's not real. Like, you must be an imposter if you have imposter syndrome. And I'm like, you literally don't understand the definition of imposter syndrome then. So imposter syndrome literally requires you to have the skill set. Okay, it's not a lack of skill. By definition, imposter syndrome is not a lack of skill. It's that you are qualified. So if you're like, well, you can't have imposter syndrome, you must be an imposter because you don't have the skills. No, imposter syndrome requires, by definition, that you are qualified. Buddy, what are you doing? Let's get out of that mess. Completely ridiculous. Now let me in here. Thank you very much. Okay, let me get over a couple lanes here because these people are pissing me off because I can't drive a motor vehicle. I'm fed up with... I've had enough. I've had a day. It's going to be impossible to get into this fast lane even though I'm beside it. Oh, give me a little entry point. Come on. Come on. This highway sucks, man. Oh, this person slows down completely. Okay, let's get in here. Okay, now back to the regular scheduled programming. So, imposter syndrome, by definition, requires that you are qualified and that you feel like an imposter even though you are qualified, okay? So if you are the kind of person saying imposter syndrome does not exist, you must be an imposter because you just don't have the skills, you're just talking about literally someone that is unqualified, and it's just a different situation. That's all. There are people that are absolutely qualified, they have the skill set, and yet they feel like an imposter, and that is imposter syndrome. There we go, okay? So now that we're on the same page for that, what was really cool was with her... Why are you beeping at me? With her explanation of imposter syndrome, she was saying, like, she provided a scenario, and the scenario is not the important part, but she walked through a scenario where someone was kind of in a new role, and, you know, something goes wrong, and now they feel like an idiot for it, okay? So what she was trying to say is, like, when it comes to imposter syndrome, she's like, it's not the scenario itself that makes imposter syndrome. So she said, new role, someone has a big blunder in their new role, so big project failure. she's like, the project failure kind of scenario is not what's going to define imposter syndrome. It's like, it's the action that comes after. And I thought this was really cool. So she walked through the scenario, and then she said, okay, now let's walk through 2 different responses to this scenario. And the first one was like this self-talk for the person being like, oh man, like, I'm definitely not qualified now, like, you know, getting promoted like was either a mistake or it was an accident, or like someone was just being nice to me to give me the promotion, like I shouldn't be here. And you basically let the negative self-talk like take over, right? And then as a result, like, what do you think happens? Like, it's gonna be hard to make any forward progress if you're just, now you've seen this thing that didn't go well, and then you just convince yourself like, you must be a failure, you don't deserve this, you're not qualified. It's gonna be like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And the alternate version, she said, is someone basically going, you know, she didn't change the scenario. She said project failed, whatever, in a spectacular way, and someone going, look, like, okay, obviously not a desired outcome, but like, I acknowledge that in a new role with new challenges, there are going to be failures that come up, and that's okay. So instead of going and running away and being like, this is the worst, I'm the worst, instead of doing that, saying, look, like, okay, well, let me see what happened, let me analyze this, get to the root cause, and understand what I can do better for next time, right? So basically leaning into this situation that's uncomfortable, and then trying to find ways to grow from it. So she described it as like growing pains versus feeding into the imposter syndrome. And I thought that was a really cool way to look at it. So I appreciated that kind of perspective on it. So that was good. And then probably the final thing I'll mention specifically from our conversation was like, she brought up, you know, the importance of people skills and soft skills. And that's cool because I love talking about that, and I feel like, you know, I get on my soapbox sometimes and I'm like, I don't know if people even care to listen to it because it's hard. I feel like software engineers don't prioritize soft skills, and they also don't want to hear me or anyone else talk about prioritizing soft skills. So it's like, whatever, like, show us more code. And like, I get it. Like, I love to program too. I understand, but I'm trying to help. I'm trying to let people know, like, if you don't have the soft skills and the people skills to go like along with all of your technical skills, it will start holding you back, and probably a lot earlier than you're hoping for. Heads up. So what was cool is in our interview together, she brought it up, and she's talking about the importance of it, and, you know, it's all stuff that's resonating with me. But she gave an example, and she said, look, like, I know this from experience, because she said, I used to be the person, the typical software engineer that didn't care. And she was bringing up the fact that she's from, and this is sort of her phrasing of it, not my perspective directly, because I don't have enough context to make this comment, but she was stating that, like, you know, she's from Poland, she was raised in, you know, with her Polish parents, and had like, kind of demonstrating or calling out maybe some like cultural or background influence that causes her to be more direct in communication, right? And I don't know enough about Polish people as like stereotypes to have an opinion on this, but this is kind of what she's sharing with me, and her reflection on it. So she's stating, you know, I have historically been a very direct person, and she mentioned too, ooh, pops and bangs from the Porsche. Yeah, stated that she actually had like peers and colleagues that would like kind of drop hints that, like, you know, she's a bit too abrasive in her communication. It's too direct. And we were talking about being like software engineers and kind of being stubborn, right? Where it's like, okay, sure, like, that's nice. Like, let me kind of, I know me, let me do me. You know, you must just be soft or whatever it happens to be. But like, we think that we know better. maybe not all of us, but so she's sharing this, and then she was like saying that it literally took her, like after she had gone through burnout and stuff, one of the things that came up in therapy was the therapist was, was bringing up that, brought up communication and stuff again. And I don't know exactly how it came up, but had mentioned something along the lines of like, very direct communication. And I think for Dagna, she was saying that it was around that point where she was like, okay, look, I've had other people tell me this now. My therapist is bringing it up as like a focus point, and it's like, maybe it's time that I actually start paying attention to this. So it's interesting, like when I was talking with her, I don't think and maybe that wasn't long enough or enough interaction to know, but I would never have guessed that she was someone who was like too direct or abrasive or anything like that. So maybe that's been a big change for her, but awesome if it is, right? Like I've worked with people that are very direct and abrasive, and yeah, like you genuinely don't want to interact with those people because you're like, I don't want to be around that. Why do I want to feel like, even if the person you like genuinely believe they don't like mean it, if it feels like you're being attacked every time you speak with them, you're like, I don't want that. Why am I going to put myself in that position? So you either avoid it or whatever else. But yeah, I think if that's truly the case for her, then like awesome work. I can't imagine how difficult that would be to be at this point. Like she's I don't know her age or anything like that, but she was saying like, she's come to the United States from Poland, she's married, she has a child, so she's an adult, and then making this change in your adult life and being like, look, if I'm abrasive and people don't like working with me or communicating with me, I need to make a change. Man, that's impressive, because I think that a lot of people would be like, it's got me this far, like, must be a you problem, right? So I think it's super cool. I think I kind of think about personalities and stuff. Like, I feel like that's got to be part of your personality, and how difficult would that be to just be like, I'm going to change part of my personality. I think for many people, they don't even have awareness of certain traits and personality things, right? Where they can even, start making improvements. Like, how would you know to make an improvement if you can't even acknowledge it? So I think it's awesome that she had it was demonstrated to her in a way where she could acknowledge it. So that's really cool. And again, like I said, I think a lot of us are probably stubborn, and we're like, I don't want to believe that, like, and she was able to say, okay, like, I do believe what you're saying, and not only that, acknowledging it and be willing to go make forward progress on it. I think that's super cool. Oh, this highway, man, is garbage. So, yeah, I thought it was an awesome interview. So her book is I think it's only $1 on Amazon. I'm not a reader. I can read, by the way, just like I can do recursion. I just don't like to. So I'm gonna pick it up. It's $1. I had mentioned to her that my wife does therapy, and my wife does therapy for children, and I thought it was funny in the podcast. I said, oh, my wife does therapy. And I made a joke, and I was like, oh yeah, but it's, it's for kids or whatever. And I was like, actually, like, that's probably why it works well on me, right? But she said that it would be helpful, perhaps for my wife to even have a read through the book, because like my wife and I think we have really good conversations about, like, I get opportunities to talk with her about thoughts and feelings that, like, I don't normally kind of like introspect on them in the same way, because I like to be very data driven, like I'm analytical, I'm a typical engineer. And when I think about like for thoughts, feelings, and like emotions and stuff like that, I'm very much like, okay, but like show me the science here. Like I want to understand how these things work, and not just like oh, it's okay, it's just emotions and these made up things. So my wife is very good at like, it feels like, you know, I believe what she's saying because she's trained and educated in this space, but she's able to provide like ways of navigating these things that I can understand. So I really appreciate conversations like that, because it's like, you know, okay, you have an emotional response to something, right? Whatever it happens to be. Say, let's pick some negative emotions because I think it helps illustrate, but say you're angry or you're sad or you're frustrated with something. Oh man, I hate that. You can't see because the camera's on the other side, but this person's like lane split. This person just went by on a motorcycle lane splitting, and like, if you're a motorcycle driver and I know you're gonna love lane splitting, but like, oh man, you can't see this as well. There's a semi truck beside me. Okay, it's not a semi truck. It's a dump truck in tandem. Okay, so it's a huge truck. There's not a whole lot of space between me and this truck, and this motorcycle just went between us. Like, I don't understand what people are thinking sometimes, but anyway, you're on a motorcycle, you know what you're doing, right? I've never seen accidents happen that way. So if we take this example of like these negative emotions, I think sometimes people feel guilty. My apologies, sorry. They feel guilty, like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel mad, I'm not supposed to be frustrated or sad. So they try to suppress them, or they try to, like, they feel guilty about it, whatever it happens to be. But instead, and like, this is, you know, from talking with my wife about these types of things, instead it's like you don't feel guilty about it, and don't try to say like, oh, it's bad that you feel an emotion. Like, an emotion is feedback, right? It's feedback. So like, acknowledge it. Don't try to like pretend like it's not happening. Like, if you're frustrated by something, okay, acknowledge it. Doesn't mean like feed into it, but acknowledge it. It's there. So now you go, okay, like, I acknowledge it, it's there. This is obviously easier said than done, especially if you're frustrated, by the way, if you didn't know. But acknowledge it's there, and then like, if you're able to, what you want to do is try and understand the source of what that, like, is triggering that emotion, because the emotion is the response to it, right? Like, go to the root of whatever is triggering that, and then that way you can be more informed. This person is switching lanes into a lane that ends, and they're gonna have to merge back in like an absolute idiot. What was your plan? No, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. My God. Like I said, today was destined to be a day of things frustrating Nick, but that's okay. So the point I wanted to get across here was that like, I really enjoy the fact that I can have conversations like this with my wife and then kind of learn these things, or at least reflect on them and stuff. And I'm not trying to say like now I'm an expert or anything like that, but you know, she had different perspectives, and it's kind of different tools for me to kind of think about these things. So Dagna was saying that for her book, she's like, hey, like, you know, maybe let your wife read it. Then she has like other tools for helping communicate with you about different things like that. And by the way, I'm not trying to make it sound like that like I have emotional outbursts and that my wife has to coach me through them. It's more just like general conversation, right? And like reflecting on things. So I realized maybe that wasn't clear, but I just want to clear the air on it. So yeah, and sometimes this will come up even when we're talking about interactions with other people, right? Like, trying to understand like, what is the source of the emotional response. So anyway, conversation with Dagna I thought was super cool. So her book's $1. I'll pick it up. I'll try to read it. I gotta brush up on my reading skills, but made it this far without reading, right? Like, how hard can it be? Yeah, so overall pretty good. I think that was a very positive part of the day. CrossFit was brutal. Interview was good. The Stuff I was reading online after that, not so good. Just super frustrated. Like, my God, I wanted to punch through my phone when I was reading some of the stuff I saw earlier, but that's okay. Work was good. I had a good day at work. I was in at the office. So I got some areas I got to focus on coming up. Just was talking with my manager about some planning we got to do, and then what his expectations are for executing on it. So feel good about that. It's going to be very busy, but like, busy's good. Being busy is better than not being busy. I would definitely say that. But it's going to be a lot of coordination, and I think that's going to be the tricky part. So, be tackling that, but I think it's going to be really good because it's going to involve a lot of the team, like even just outside of the groups that I manage directly. So part of me is pretty excited for that, just to have like more collaboration within our team. I think that'll feel good. I got to see, I forgot about this. I got to see Brad today. Brad is my skip level manager, and so my boss's boss. And the other day he was on my live stream. So and he was like in the chat, like chatting in the live stream, asking questions and stuff. And it was funny because when he joined the live stream, I try to make sure that I'm reading the chat actively, right? I genuinely want to be engaging with people. I want them to be sending messages so that I can be interacting. And I remember the message came in, it was from LinkedIn, and I saw Brad. I saw his name come up, and I remember being like, wait a second, like, that's my skip level manager. And I didn't even get to read his message, but I remember being like so caught off guard that I was like, man, what was I talking about? So he was like, oh, I noticed. So it was pretty funny, but yeah, it was super cool that he dropped in. So I was thanking him for that. But yeah, it's he just said he happened to be on LinkedIn at the time and saw that I was live, so I was like, oh, I'll click on this and join. But yeah, super cool, right? That obviously he's a busy guy and he's got stuff, like whatever he wants to do outside of work is totally his time, and this is not work related. So it's pretty cool that he could drop in and chat. So he was asking good questions around, like, because the conversation was testing, right? And in particular, I was talking about situations where, like genuinely, what are situations where you don't test code? So, and then some of the conversation leads into like, okay, well, what types of tests are we talking about? Like, it's not just black and white tests or not, like maybe you'll opt for different types of tests. So he was asking questions around like, hey, like, does AI help with this, right? Like, do we get to a situation where you leverage AI and you don't even have to be having conversations like this? And I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people right now, at least from what I hear about, if they're using AI for testing and stuff like that, I feel like what I'm hearing is people say, I'll give a Copilot or ChatGPT some code and say, hey, go write the test for this. But then Copilot or ChatGPT spits out the code for the tests, and maybe they work, right? Let's assume they work, and great. So you go, cool, okay, now I have tests, but like, do you understand what the tests are covering? Like, do you understand if they're valuable tests, or was it just giving you some coverage? Like, how do you prioritize what to be testing, even if AI is writing the tests for you? Where are the gaps? I think sometimes some of the benefits of going through and writing the tests are figuring out like edge cases for things, or like scenarios that you hadn't thought of. And like, then this is where the interesting part comes in for me, is like, I think that AI is able to help with that, but you have to prompt it to do so, right? If you just say, go write the unit tests on this, and it's like, sure, are you letting it do introspection on like your feature area and like maybe edge cases, or not even edge cases in the code paths, I mean, but like from like how someone's using the feature, like, are there things that you need to be thinking about differently? And I don't think that that's people are leveraging AI for that. It's like, hey, look, it spat out the tests and like code coverage went up, like ship it, let's go. So I thought it was cool to kind of chat through that. And yeah, I personally think that that's probably not happening right now. Maybe some people are doing that, and that's super cool. But I actually think like it's probably a step forward in getting test coverage, probably a step back in understanding the value of your tests. I think if you're just blindly letting AI do it for you, probably a step back in understanding it. And again, for most people, I'm not saying this is a rule, like probably most people are saying, hey, AI, do this thing that I don't want to do or spend time on. And they go, great, I got the result, let's move on. But I do think that this is a super interesting opportunity, either for tooling or even just us as humans interacting with AI. Like, you know, be more curious, like use it for analysis, get it to be creative. I feel like AI can be helpful in creative scenarios. And I think when it comes to like testing and exploring different things, like that could be a huge opportunity. Or even, like, and again, I don't know how you would do this easily, but having AI like kind of understand the surface area of your product or feature or service, and helping guide you down the path of like, hey, look, like this is where you should be spending your attention. And over here, probably lower priority to go invest in. In fact, like maybe you can do like a risk analysis for you. Like, this is the spot in your code, you better pay attention to it. And how does it know? Maybe it's able to use, I don't know, more context about like commits for bug fixes or churn for areas of code. Like, that can be pretty powerful, versus just copy and paste a class in and then it's like go write the test for it. So I don't know, I think there's a long way to go, but I think it's going to be super cool in the next few years. It's already super cool, so I'm looking forward to it. I still don't think my job's going away. Hopefully just the boring parts for now. And maybe I'll do something later, but maybe I'll be ready to retire by then, right? Please. We'll see. But yeah, I think those are some of the major things I wanted to talk about. I know for me, what's on my mind right now, in particular, is Crumble Cookie. Crumble Cookie, if you're not in the US, Crumble Cookie is a franchise, and they have these enormous cookies. They're like 1,200 calories each, and they're like the size of your hand. And they're thick. They usually have icing on them, and they're like underbaked almost. Like, they're super soft. They're so good. No, you're not coming in here, buddy. You gotta wait your turn. And the other thing they do is they have 6 cookies. One they keep consistent, so every time they have chocolate chip by default. But they have, I think, the 5 other cookies rotate every single week. And that means when they announce which cookies are coming, it kind of creates some FOMO. It's genius marketing. They do really well, I'm sure. And so you have these cookies that get announced, and there's 5 new cookies, and they'll bring back ones, you know, periodically and stuff. But this week, it's not even a cookie. This week they have a brownie, and it's enormous. It's definitely bigger than my hand, and it's a brownie, and it's got icing on it, and then it has fudge on top of the icing. It's insanity. And I'm gonna eat that this weekend. And I'm so excited. That's all that I'm thinking about. It's what's keeping me going right now. So, I told my wife we'll go to CrossFit on Saturday. CrossFit on Saturday is not at 6 a.m., which is excellent, because 6 a.m. is pretty early. I don't like that. We'll go to CrossFit. We got to go to Costco for our shopping on the weekend. But what's near the Costco is the crumble cookie, and we're gonna get the brownie each. I'm not sharing a brownie. There's absolutely no way I would share that. I need my own. And that's what's keeping me going. Otherwise, I didn't get my YouTube topic picked for filming. That was the other thing I think I mentioned this morning, is I got to get some YouTube topics picked. Didn't do that, which sucks. I guess I gotta film something. So maybe I'll have a creative burst in the next couple minutes as I'm pulling into the driveway here. Just a sec. And then other than that, I gotta get filming on the next course with Ryan. So a lot of the material and stuff we need to get, like slide decks and stuff together. So I'll probably spend time on that and then just crush some filming on Saturday. That's probably my plan, I think, is I don't know if I'll film. I don't think I'm going to film it tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Friday is going to be newsletter time, so maybe tomorrow I'll film, but definitely on Saturday. Oh, man. I'll explain this in just a second, but our neighbors suck. So there's like 50 people that live in the house next to us. I'm exaggerating a little bit. I like to do that. It's a lot of people. I feel I'm not exaggerating. There's probably at least 4 families that live in the house next to us. And that's not my business. But the part that is my business is that they have tons of vehicles. They also have a driveway on the other side that they don't use. Okay, and they park their vehicles in front of our house, which is totally legal for them to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But it pisses me off because what happens is that they park in the spots that mean that when I need to back up into our driveway, if there's another car remotely close, like coming down the road, I have to just wait because I can't like swing out and like back into the spot because they're in the way. I need to wait for the car to come by so that I can maneuver around their stupid parked cars because they don't use their own driveway, like a bunch of dummies. There's a lot of dummies today. But tomorrow will be a better day. So I'm not making a vlog tomorrow because I'm not going to the office, but I'll have a better day. And I think until then, I'll see you next time.